Welcome to Higher Thoughts. I'm Whitney, and I hope that you checked out my disclaimer video just to understand where I am coming from. What I want to say in this video is that I want you to let your inner guidance guide you on believing what I'm saying is true or not true for you. It's okay if you don't agree with what I'm saying, but just sit and think about what I say here in this video. And this first topic that I want to talk about essentially is you will not be well until you leave that toxic environment, until you leave that toxic situation, until you leave that toxic job, until you leave that toxic home, until you leave that toxic relationship. And I say this because I'm the type of person who is very much into my wellness, my mental and spiritual and physical wellness. And I do all the things. I do breath work, I do meditation, I do sound healing, I journal, I go to therapy, all the things to be well. I go to the spa, I make sure that I'm taking care of my skin, I'm drinking my water. But all of those things that you do for wellness and to be well and to feel good and to feel well will not mask and cover up the toxic environment that you allow yourself to continue to stay in. Those toxic environments or situations or relationships or jobs or whatever you are in that you feel is toxic will undo the work that you are doing for your personal wellness, betterment, and development. It's kind of like if you think about, you go over to a clean pond and you clean yourself off. You clean it's kind of like you're washing in a beautiful pond and you're getting nice and clean. And as long as you're not in that toxic environment, you're nice and clean, you're good to go. But as soon as you go back to that toxic environment, it's like you are in the swamp. A dirty, nasty, toxic swamp. And you're in this murky water with seaweed all over you, with gunk on you, and you immediately start to contract. Your thoughts start going back into ruminating thoughts. You feel tightness in your chest, you feel tightness in your stomach, and you think that by doing your wellness practices that it's going to remedy that situation and allow you to continue to grow, thrive, and be well. And I'm here to tell you that you will not. You cannot put potpourri over shit and think that it's going to change your situation. I'm telling you this out of personal experience because that was the hamster wheel that I was on. Doing my wellness practices to be internally healthy, emotionally and spiritually healthy, and then putting myself back into the toxic environment and having to run to my wellness practices to try and get me back into a regulated state of being, and dealing with having to recover from being in a toxic situation or environment, and then finally getting to a place over time where I feel well, only to put myself back into the toxic situation. And finally, I discovered, like, I will never be well. I will never be able to accomplish certain goals that I want to accomplish, or even just have the mindset to take care of my basic necessities like cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. I'm telling you, when you are continually in a toxic environment, it drains you so bad. And those of you who resonate, you know that this is true. It drains you so bad that when you are out of it for the short amount of time that you are, you're spending that time just to recover, trying to get your energy back, laying out, not able to do anything, just comatose state. In your head, you're like, oh, I gotta do this thing, I gotta do this thing, I wanna do this thing, I wanna try that thing, I wanna go to that event, whatever, whatever. But inside you're like, I'm so drained from being in this toxic environment day after day after day for hours on end that you just don't have the will or the motivation to do the things that you know are gonna be beneficial for you because you are in this place of needing to recover. And what I found is that doing this cycle or this hamster wheel over and over again, trying to run to my wellness practices to be well and continuing to put myself in the toxic environment that was making me unwell, I started having physical symptoms showing up. And that is what really caused me to take a beat and realize that I had to make a shift to take myself out of the toxicity, the toxic environment, the toxic culture. I had to really come to a place where I had to decide I have to leave this. This is not going to continue to work for me. I'm not going to be able to continue on with this hamster wheel, with this cycle that keeps putting me in the same place over and over again, to where I feel like personally I wasn't able to move forward and continue growing or continue achieving or accomplishing the things that I wanted to achieve. I had to get real with myself and come to the conclusion that I won't be well if I stay in the toxic environment. I have to leave. And depending on what that toxic environment is for you, that might be scary. That might feel like the unknown. Like, what am I going to do once I leave here? How am I going to support myself if I leave this job? How am I going to move along with whatever if I leave this relationship? How will things change between me and family if I decide that I'm going to create a strong boundary and really separate myself? Those are really hard questions to have to ask yourself. But what I will say is visualize and think about yourself and what will happen to you if you stay. Really think about it. Really consider what is going to happen to me in my life if I stay here. Am I going to get better or am I going to get worse? More often than not, things are going to get worse for you. The things that get worse can show up as worse mental health issues, physical health symptoms showing up. And then you go into a doctor and they're like, nothing's wrong with you, it's just stress. And you're like, what? Something is wrong with me. I'm having physical symptoms. They're like, no, it's just stress and anxiety. And you're kind of like, what? You're like, I need more answers. No, they're right. They are right. You being in that toxic environment repetitively has caused extreme nervous system dysregulation in you, has caused um, you to be stressed and tense, has caused you to be anxious. And if you were already dealing with some level of anxiety, it caused you to be even more anxious. It caused you to feel more disorganized within your thoughts and within yourself. And all of those chemical, hormonal things that shift and happen in our body when we're stressed out, those things start to affect us physically. So you have to get to the point where you're going to decide that you're worth more than putting yourself through that. Your life, your purpose, whatever your soul is calling you to, is worth more than letting yourself deteriorate in a toxic environment. How long and how bad do things have to get until you decide to leave? When will you know that it is worth it for you to be well? The thing is when you are well, your thoughts are clearer. Your heart rate is steady. Your breathing is more consistent and coherent. And you then begin to have clarity on the direction you should go. You then have the motivation and the willpower and the internal strength to do things that you didn't have the strength to do before because you were so drained. And with that, your life and your situation and your circumstances can gradually begin to change. But the main thing that needs to happen is you have to leave that toxic environment, that toxic situation. Whatever that thing is, you know, is draining the life and soul out of you, is just making you on this hamster wheel of life, not really living. You're going to have to get out of that toxic environment. There's no amount of therapy, meditation, breath work, prayer, positive thoughts, affirmations, and any other wellness practices or techniques to try and change your reality or manifest things or whatever. There's no amount of that is going to compensate for the toxic environment and the toxicity that you are currently in. You are going to have to remove yourself from that toxic environment. And then this is the other thing. We have to take personal responsibility, right? If you were in that toxic environment, that toxic relation, that toxic situation, you were attracted to that at one point in time. So your own personal toxicity, whatever is about you that you know, I'm not here to judge you, but whatever it is that you know, certain behaviors or patterns that you have, certain things that you say, when you get defensive around certain things, or not listening or hearing people, cutting people off, all these different things. There's so many ways that we can be toxic, right? You have to evaluate that within yourself. Because this toxic environment didn't come from nowhere, right? We're not, let me just say in this channel, we're not going to be pointing the finger at everybody else. We are going to go within first. We are going to point the finger at ourselves first and foremost. And we are going to take accountability and responsibility for our life. So even in recognizing that I am in a toxic environment, and maybe with all your wellness practices that you've done with your therapy, it has allowed you to gain an awareness of, oh, this is toxic. This is not healthy, right? You know, once you become aware of something, that changes the game. Because then you start to recognize that you have actually in your life been conditioned for toxicity. You've been conditioned in your family. You've been conditioned in school. You've been conditioned in so many ways throughout your life to be conditioned for toxicity. So your wellness practices probably have led you to the place of becoming aware of the toxic environment. And then when you are aware of that, then it comes to, well, let me see how I have been toxic and how I have been contributing to that toxicity. Because if you don't address the toxicity within you, you will leave that environment and go into another environment, and that toxicity will be right there. So then the thing is, all right, I want to remove myself from the toxic environment. And now that I'm aware of the toxicity within my environment, I need to also be aware of how I've been toxic, the things that I have allowed that I shouldn't have, the ways that I should have spoken up about something, but I didn't, and I just allowed it to fly. Things that I should have nipped in the bud a while ago, but I didn't. I continued to let it fester and fester and fester. You have been enabling that toxicity. And so it's dual fold, where you have to look at your own patterns, your own behaviors, your own actions, and even ask yourself, like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why was that my perspective when that happened? Why was that my approach? Because all of those things also fed into the toxicity of that environment. So that's a lot. And I'm not going to go into, here are 3 steps to be less toxic. Do this in the morning, do this in the afternoon, do this in the night. Mm-mm. This is where your own inner guidance comes in, right? Your soul, your higher self knows more about the reason why you are here to express yourself than anybody else. The only thing I can do is say, hey, have you considered this? Let me point you in this direction. How does this feel to you? Does this resonate with you? Does this feel right to you? Does this feel true to you? So I'm not going to give you the steps on how to change your toxic environment, the steps to clear out your own personal toxicity. The first step is you becoming aware, and your inner guidance will lead you. There's a level of inner and self-trust that you have to gain. That thing that you feel in your gut, you know if it's a yes or a no. Start following that. Your chest tightened up when somebody asked you to do something and you know you really didn't want to do it. That tightness in your chest was a no. Your inner guidance will lead you, but you have to listen. you have to pay attention. Because a lot of times it's not going to knock you over the head. It's going to be a subtle shift within your body, a subtle shift in a tightness inside, a subtle shift in, you having like an uneasy feeling. Your inner guidance is always speaking to you, and you have to follow that. And your inner guidance is your inner guidance. No one else outside of you knows exactly what is right and best for you, because your unique soul came here for a particular experience. And your soul is communicating that to you through your body, through a thought that popped in your head, and you just decided, no, I'm not going to go with that. You felt something, you thought something, but because of the ego or what society says is good or right or whatever, or what your family says, all these societal limitations and societal beliefs that keep people in a box, you let those things be the determining factor around what you would or would not do. But your inner guidance, your soul let you know. And that's what you have to return to. That is the inner guidance. That is what you have to return to, is listening to that inner guidance. So I think I went a little off on a tangent here, and that's going to happen. I gotta reel it back in. That's going to happen. I'm going to go on a tangent sometimes. It might go all the way out here, and I got to bring it back to the point. But the point is, first and foremost, you cannot use your wellness practices as a crutch for the toxic environment that you are in. That is only going to get you but so far. And inside, there's more for you. There's more for you to do. You want to do more. You don't want to be confined to a specific thing. That this thing is draining you, and because of that, you don't have the motivation, the willpower, or the strength to do other things, or to move into other arenas, or even to move into the next level of your growth. And your wellness practices are just not going to cover it up. And let me even say this too. The drinking, if you drink, is not going to cover it up. The smoking, if you smoke, or whatever drugs you do, is not going to solve the fact that you are in a toxic environment and you need to remove yourself. You have to do the heavy lifting here. It's probably going to feel scary. I'm not saying that this is easy to do, because depending on your situation, a lot of things might have to shift and change for you for a while until you figure out the next thing. Removing yourself from a toxic environment is not an overnight process. Sometimes it just starts in the mind, where you just decide, I'm done. Even if you haven't physically taken the steps to leaving that toxicity, whatever it is, just starting in the mind is the first step of being like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done. Internally, I know I'm done. And now it's that process of figuring out how am I going to go ahead and remove myself from the situation. Some toxic situations may be easier to remove yourself from others. Again, Your situation may be different. We're all in different situations. It could be a job, it could be a position, it could be um, a relationship, it could be your school, it could be your family, it could be the town you live in, or the apartment complex you live in. It could be a whole host of things. It could even be your religious organization or religious house of worship, whatever religion you are. And I also want to make this clear, I don't subscribe to any religion. And that's a personal choice that I have made. And that's not anything that I would ever impress or impose on anybody else. But I want to make it clear that it could also be that religious institution that you are involved in that is the toxic environment. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. But I am here to make you aware of it. It is up to you what you want to do. No one can force you to do what you really genuinely don't want to do or don't feel ready to do. It's in your timing, when you're ready, so forth and so on. But I'm here to make you aware and let you know that your wellness practices or whatever else you jump into to try and make you feel well is not going to undo all the toxicity that you are in, and that you won't be well until you leave that toxic swamp and get over into that clean pond and clean yourself off and continue doing the things that clean you. Go to therapy, do your wellness practices, whatever you feel works for you. Those are your clean swamp, not clean swamp. Those are your clean pond. Those are the things that are going to clean you off. Do that and never go back to that toxic swamp. That's all I'm going to share today. I hope something that I said, again, illuminated something for you or lit a spark up underneath you to take the action that you know you need to make. It may not be easy, but it will be worth it because you're worth it. Thank you.